Good morning and welcome to the Law Show. Bob Kerrigan with you this morning, and the other lawyers here at Kerrigan, Estes, Rankin, McLeod, and Thompson will be talking about various aspects of the law. We answer your text messages. We try to do it simultaneously while we're on the air. So if you text us this morning, for example, and you have a question, we'll try to get back to you immediately. Sometimes it takes a little while depending on what the question is. We are reluctant to give advice based on a text message for a particular case. You just can't know enough about it. And we don't want to say something or provide advice to you that might be detrimental to you. If we knew more about the facts, we might have a different take on it. So the questions that you send us or the text messages, we can follow up if it's an individual case. And if it's a general question, then we can respond to that pretty fast. In fact, we do it on the air. One of the questions we've gotten in the past, actually several times, is how do I discharge a lawyer if I can't communicate with my lawyer, whatever the reason might be. And sometimes you just make a mistake. I mean, we've all been in a situation, I think many people have anyway, where you have a physician, for example, that you just have a personality conflict with. Might be a wonderful doctor, but you don't jihad. You don't communicate very well, and you're not doing the doctor any favor to stay with the doctor. And it's the same thing with a lawyer. You're not doing the lawyer any favor to stay with a lawyer, because you're basically not going to get along with this lawyer. You're not going to be. It's going to invade your trust relationship with that lawyer, and so it's sometimes best to separate. Now, we never encourage that, because it's just not good for people to change lawyers for no reason at all. If you have a legitimate reason, you can't communicate with your lawyer, you have a suspicion. We have. I used to say we have this little voice of judgment on our shoulder, and that little voice of judgment is telling you this lawyer's in trouble. They've got an alcohol problem. They have a drug problem. They are not attending to their business the way they should. When I talk to them, they don't seem to know anything about my case. I can't even communicate with them. I'm constantly having to deal with somebody that works for them, and they say the lawyer's not available. I can't get my questions answered. Well, it's time to find another lawyer, okay? I recommend that you make that final effort to tell the lawyer, I want to communicate with you. I don't want to communicate with other people. I have a question. I have a legitimate question that I want you to answer, or I have some issues that I would like to address with you. So again, the idea here is don't make matters worse by staying with somebody that you don't care for. Now, I must address this. My longtime friend, I've known John Morgan for years, and Morgan, but he's got a commercial running right now that I take some offense to, and it's this. He says in the commercial that they've grown, and they have a lot of lawyers. I don't know, several hundred lawyers that he has working for him all over. And that if your law firm is small, then maybe your law firm isn't as good because they haven't grown as fast, or they're not as big, or they don't have as many lawyers. Well, big doesn't mean better in practicing law. And you only have one lawyer. You don't have 300 lawyers. You have one. And so the question is, what qualifications and experience does the lawyer that Morgan & Morgan picks for you have? What experience do they have? What competence level do they have? Are they rated with the highest ethical and legal ability rating you can get from Martindale-Hubbell? That's called an AV rating. Every partner in Kerrigan, Estes, Rankin, McLeod, and Thompson has an AV rating. Well, Morgan & Morgan can't advertise that, because all of the lawyers they have working for them don't have AV ratings. But you have a legitimate right to ask that question of the lawyer that they assign to you, and they will assign a lawyer to you. You won't be represented by anybody named Morgan, or certainly not by John, but he'll have some lawyer assigned to you. You will not have picked that lawyer. They will have picked you. Well, it's reversed with a small firm like us, and that is, you pick the lawyer. And you pick the lawyer based on the lawyer's credentials and their ability. And so you would want a board-certified lawyer. Yeah, that's the Florida Bar's way of distinguishing lawyers that are experts in civil litigation. And at Kerrigan, Estes, Rankin, and McLeod and Thompson, we're all board certified. All the partners are board certified. We don't have associates. So at Morgan & Morgan, they can't advertise that they are all board certified because they're not. They can't advertise that their lawyers have obtained multi-million-dollar verdicts because all of them haven't. Some may have, but all of them have not. And so the idea here is that you should pick a lawyer based on their individual qualifications and experience and their ability. And fundamentally, do you get along with that lawyer? Is it a lawyer you enjoy talking to, or you think is knowledgeable and respectful of you and your situation and communicates with you and expresses concern for you? And that's true of some lawyers with Morgan & Morgan, but you can't be assured of anything because they just assign somebody to you. But you do have a right to ask some really penetrating questions, and there's a document called a Statement of Client's Rights that tells you a lot of questions you should ask the lawyer. But we have extensive experience in civil litigation. We have for many decades. We've been in North Florida, across North Florida. Our lawyers have been picked as the outstanding lawyers in North Florida, the outstanding plaintiffs' lawyers in 3 of the last 5 years. So we have the credentials and experience and results. You know, years ago, many years ago, there was a commercial from by Avis car rental and Hertz. And Hertz was a giant then. I think they still are pretty big. It's a great company, as is Avis. But Avis advertised that they had to try harder because they were number 2. Well, we're not number 2 in relation to skill and ability, but we're number 2 in size, okay? So we don't have the size of a big mega firm like Morgan & Morgan, but we have skillful lawyers, board certified, highly credentialed, well experienced, with many, many substantial verdicts. So why is that important? Well, you wouldn't want a doctor to operate on you that was learning. That's why they have residencies under supervision, and they have fellowships, and they have internships, and they have all kinds of things for in their training that help them achieve a level of success that assures competent medical care being provided. You wouldn't want a doctor that was learning on you, okay? And I think that's what you have to be aware of if you are assigned a lawyer. How competent is this lawyer for my case? And we are not really in competition with them because we specialize in the civil litigation in these kinds of cases, but our cases involve very serious injuries or deaths. We do not have stub toe cases and hurt feeling cases and fractured finger cases and things like that. We don't do that. We have very seriously injured people, the death claims and paralysis claims and others. We've experienced all of them. We've handled all claims like this over the years, all of the partners at Kerrigan, Estes, Rankin, McLeod, and Thompson. Well, that's kind of a long advertisement, but you can be swayed by something because of the constancy of it. You see these commercials over and over and over and over again, and you say, well, they must be pretty good. They have all these commercials. Well, that may or may not be the case because you can only have one lawyer. You can't have 200 lawyers, as I said earlier. You can have one lawyer, and that lawyer better be a good fit for you. Talk to 2 or 3 lawyers. Don't just hire somebody because you saw them on TV. Talk to 2 or 3 lawyers. Interview them. Ask them questions about their competence, experience, and their time and their capacity to handle a case. But most importantly, for the depth of the lawyer's resources to take on a big, major case, it's not inconsequential that the lawyer has to have financial depth. It's critically important that the lawyer has the financial depth to handle a multi-million-dollar case, because you don't handle multi-million-dollar cases by going on the cheap. You have to bring in the top experts you can find in whatever the field is that you're dealing with. And so it's really important to understand, does this law firm and does this lawyer have the depth, the financial depth to undertake my case? So just some of the considerations that you should ask. We're glad to answer any questions about it that you have. And we do this without obligation. We review the cases without any charge to anybody. Many times we have to reject cases because they don't meet the threshold of what we do, and that is for serious injuries and death claims. But we try to refer people out to other lawyers that might do that kind of work, but we don't accept every case and everybody that calls. We can't, but we will at least listen to what you're saying and try to help you if we can't undertake the case. I want to speak quickly about some of the things that are going on with the pariahs hanging around litigation. And one of them are these one of them is a finance company that offers money to people who've been injured in an accident to the lawyer, and they front the money and then they want to be paid back after the case gets settled. Well, there's risk in that, of course, so the interest rates are higher. But to me, the interest rates are obscene. They're just offensive in charging whatever the numbers, 150% or whatever. It's just outrageous what they charge. And we strongly discourage people from getting into these situations, because by the time it ends and you've got to pay all this extra money back to somebody who fronted you some money in the case, it's very discouraging to people, because their recovery then is limited now by the money they have to repay. But sometimes people are in such a jam they have to do something. We strongly discourage it and want people to be aware that these are very predatory type lending. I put them in the same category as payday loans and title loan companies. I don't think there is much difference in them in terms of just the predatory level of financings that they charge. Question that came in on PIP versus UM. What is PIP? What's UM? Well, Mike McLeod and Randy Thompson have talked about UM at length. Most critical coverage, get uninsured motorist coverage. Never, ever, ever reject it. What is PIP, on the other hand? Personal injury protection coverage. It's $10,000 paid regardless of who's involved and regardless of fault. That's the no fault part of Florida automobile negligence law. It's PIP, P-I-P, personal injury protection. It's only $10,000. In this session of the legislature, they're probably going to do away with it. It's archaic. It's 30 or 40 years old. $10,000 hardly gets you a cup of coffee in an emergency room anymore. So it really doesn't mean much of anything. They're going to substitute it, we hope, with bodily insurance, mandating rather that people have bodily insurance coverage in Florida, which now is not mandated. The only thing mandated in Florida now is property damage. Insurance companies want their property damage covered, but they have no concern about people that are injured in automobile accidents. That's why we don't have bodily injury coverage mandated in Florida. And we've mentioned this before on the Law Show. It's one of the few states in the South that doesn't have this mandatory BI coverage, and that is the bodily injury protection coverage. And buy as much of it as you can afford. We recommend at least 25/50 if you can afford it, all the way up to 100/300,000 coverage would be ideal if you can afford it. It is just a function of what your financial situation is. Bob Kerrigan with you on the Law Show. We've got other segments coming up this morning. I hope you'll stay with us, and thank you very much for watching the Law Show and texting us with your questions.